Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Zenon Kaplan, and you're here for another episode of In Conversation With, where we talk to some of the movers and shakers in fintech here in Asia Pacific and understand what they're focused on and what they think about for the future. Today, we're really excited to have the CEO of Backbase on with us today. Jouk Pleiter is the CEO of Backbase, and most famously, Backbase has been for a long time privately funded, but recently got a round of funding. So, Jouk, really happy to have you here today. For those of our audience who may not know you and Backbase, can you give us a bit of a background to start off?
Yeah, sure. Happy to do. Backbase is a software company, and we help banks to modernize their engagement layer. So it's kind of basically all about how to make them competitive with neobanks, and also how to help them kind of really architect around their customers. So what you see, a lot of banks are very traditional. They are organized around their channels, their legacy applications, and we're helping them to change that and to become basically a platform approach, very customer-centric, focusing on the customer experience.
That's a great intro. Can you talk a little bit more about who the typical clients are? I would assume these are the banks, and what are the key challenges that they're facing and why they come to Backbase?
Yeah. What you see is the banks have kind of a very simple problem. They have a lot of legacy, and that legacy has never been built for the digital world. So if you look at most customers of the traditional banks, they have a lot of choice. So banks now need to compete in this digital world, like who is the preferred banking application. Basically everybody is available, of course, on a smartphone. And if you then look at the typical infrastructure of a bank, it is not built to basically be competitive in that digital platform era, right? So the main challenge is that banks have a lot of silos. And also, especially in all their customer contact points, there's a lot of siloed applications. So there's the call center, there's the branches, there's inside the bank multiple internal employee applications, external facing, the same thing. So the idea of Backbase is basically to help these banks to move away from these legacy applications, these point solutions, and move it into a single omni-channel platform that helps them to orchestrate all their customer interactions. So the problem is lots of silos, lots of spaghetti. That makes the bank slow, that makes the cost-income ratio slow, and it's kind of very difficult to be agile and customer-friendly, right? So the transition is away from that legacy, away from those silos, into the platform era, and basically utilizing an engagement banking platform. That's what Backbase does, an engagement banking platform, a single platform that can orchestrate all customer interactions across all touch points. So that's from web, from mobile, empowering the end customer, but also towards the employee.
That makes a lot of sense. I think certainly over the past couple of years in the pandemic, digital has become very important for any financial institution or financial player. The question I would have, though, is, this space is very crowded from a solution perspective. You have the large players that are selling entire core banking solutions that include the front end. You have other players that are focused just on the digital experience. What really sets Backbase apart?
Yeah, so it's very clear. Typically, you have the system of records. That's the core banking system, the system where you basically kind of keep the ledger. Then you've got typically an integration layer, and then on top of that, you've got your engagement layer. If we really simplify the horizontal layers of a banking technology stack. So Backbase exclusively sits in the engagement layer. And that engagement layer is loosely coupled from the system of record. So where banks need to kind of do application modernization, it is very hard to replace their core systems. So a lot of people would like to kind of keep these systems in place. So the value proposition of Backbase to traditional banks is you can keep your systems of record, your core banking system, your payment rails, your CRM, you can keep that in place. Via a loosely coupled integration architecture, we can then activate on top of that the engagement banking platform. So Backbase does not compete with core banking system. It's basically complementary to it. We basically coexist, and Backbase is really automating and helping banks to accelerate what we call customer journeys in the engagement layer. So the Backbase engagement platform is basically an orchestrator. It orchestrates customer journeys, and it does that from customer onboarding to servicing, to loan origination, to loyalty, basically the full customer life cycle. So we compete and we replace a lot of point solutions, especially with the larger banks. You see that in the last 10 years in this digital realm.
That's great. Can you talk a little bit more about what sets the Backbase solution apart versus your competition? I mean, we know you're involved in kind of the engagement layer of that, but you have a lot of players that are competing in that space as well. What really sets the Backbase solution and platform apart?
Yeah, so what Backbase really, like Backbase plays in the engagement layer, exactly to your point, right? So system of record, integration layer, system of engagement, that's really where we operate. What sets Backbase apart is a couple of things. We really focus on a single platform. So we, unlike many of our competitors, we've never done any acquisitions. So we handcrafted a single platform to really orchestrate the full customer lifecycle. So that is from onboarding to servicing to loan origination to customer loyalty. So basically the full customer lifecycle on a single platform. I think that's really unique about the Backbase platform. So one platform, one architecture, one code base, and a fully integrated suite of solutions. And we see great uptake in that within the Asian region. We see it in Australia, New Zealand. We see it in the Philippines, in Vietnam, where we help banks to really replace a lot of point solutions that are being developed in the past. But the problem is these point solutions, they're not aware of each of the different customer interactions. They're also to a degree outdated. So there's this nice transition from all these point solutions into a single platform, an integrated suite, where all these things work seamlessly together. In my mind, it's a little bit like the early days of Windows, where you had WordPerfect for word processing, you had Lotus Notes for Excel type of stuff. So with Backbase, it's basically the Microsoft Office, where we kind of bring all these capabilities together in this digital world on a single platform.
You're showing your age in some of those references, but
yes, for the younger audience, completely irrelevant. Apologies.
Fond memories of some of those platforms myself. It's interesting you mentioned organic growth, and that's one of the things that's been really impressive about Backbase's growth so far, especially over these past couple of years in the low interest rate environment where fintechs were getting funded left and right. Can you talk a little bit about the decision that you made to stay private and not take external investment and really kind of bootstrap to where you are today? And then what kind of fed into the decision to, at this point, then take funding?
Yeah, so with Backbase in the last 10 years, we had 100% focus on a single industry, that is banking. So originally the company started as a horizontal platform focusing on customer experience. 10 years ago, we decided to really focus it on a single industry. And that kind of helped us really, together with the support of our customers, our banks, our early banks, to kind of start building the platform. So it was very market-led. And with that product market fit, and especially if you work with larger enterprise clients like banks, you can orchestrate the cash flow very early on. So where a lot of fintechs basically don't have product market fit, they've got more of an idea, they get funding for the idea, they need to basically validate how active, how viable their proposition is. With Backbase, it was actually the other way around. We found product market fit on our own. We did that in an organic way with customers. And then once you have that product market fit and you can orchestrate cash flow with real customers, that kind of enabled us to kind of steadily grow the company. And it was nice and important for us to stay independent, to really drive our own agenda. And then more recently, we were hitting around 200 million in revenue. And we felt like, hey, if we want to grow the company and do another 5x in growth, it would be, a sensible thing to do to kind of fortify the balance sheet. It's kind of a conservative argument, I would say, and also to be proactive in the next few years about driving further innovation, maybe some tactical acquisitions. So it's basically giving the company the solidified balance sheet and some extra firepower to accelerate when the right opportunities arise.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, you mentioned potential acquisitions, and how does this funding kind of change the strategy of the company? I mean, if we think about the sliding windows approach or sliding doors approach to where you would have gone without the funding versus where you're going with the funding, what differences do you see, or how do you think that's going to impact the business going forward?
Yes, I think there's a difference between, I don't think it's going to really impact the strategy so much. I think the strategy is very clear, and actually you get the funding to kind of execute the strategy. So I think it's a continuation of the strategy. Our mission is basically to re-architect banking around customers. And there's a tremendous opportunity in Asia, but also in other parts of the world where there's so much legacy applications. The cost-income ratio of most of these banks is just way too high. The reality is out there, you are competing with fintechs that have a platform approach. So I think the traditional banks need to fight back. They are willing to fight back. They already have the install base with customers, so they basically need to protect that. So with most of the chief digital officers and CIOs in the regions, the awareness is there. We need to kind of accelerate that digital transformation. It's very likely that a platform approach will help and accelerate that. So there's more kind of this build versus buy type of scenario. And with Backbase, we really say, you don't need to have to do all that plumbing. Here's an industrialized platform that will do 80% of the plumbing for you. So you can be really creative in how you kind of tailor and differentiate your customer journey. So it's really an accelerator to kind of that digital transformation, where we do the plumbing and the bank and the local teams are creative to maximize their differentiation. So the funding is basically just to help us to execute that vision. And still kind of in the execution, it's also very important to focus on key markets. So even with extra money, you can dilute your efforts too much. So North America, Europe, Middle East, Asia, main markets for Backbase. So it basically gives us more firepower in these focus markets to go deeper and basically ramp up our commercial staff and basically engage in more dialogue with CXOs around the region.
That makes a lot of sense. I want to stick on the point of the markets for a second and kind of zoom in on the Asia Pacific side of things. Where do you feel, I mean, obviously Backbase has a suite of products, but where are the gaps in the market right now? And what is Backbase doing to kind of meet those gaps? You know, where are there not products when you look at the Asia Pacific markets? Where are the pain points that aren't being addressed? And how do you think in the future Backbase's products can meet those points of pain?
Yeah, I think that at least from our point of view, if you are in this engagement layer, right, there's a couple of things that are always kind of have a lot of room for improvement. First is kind of the middleware. How do you integrate to core systems? So the choice is either you replace the core system, but that's open heart surgery and it's extremely risky and extremely costly. So the whole idea is that how do you keep the systems of record, but then you basically need to have this kind of middleware layer, this loosely coupled integration layer. So there's a lot of investment needed there to further industrialize that integration layer. Then secondly, you see a use case where you basically in the engagement layer need to aggregate. So you need to aggregate capabilities from your systems of record, but you also would like to kind of aggregate capabilities from point solutions in the fintech world for loyalty, for open banking, for account aggregation, for KYC, for AML. So it's the engagement platform is almost like a grand central where all these different capabilities need to come together, and then you can use those data sets and these capabilities to orchestrate customer journeys. So from 10,000 feet, there's the integration challenge and there's the aggregation challenge. And then once you have that in order, you can start to compose, like an artist, you can compose customer journeys, and you can do that really fast. So
yeah, that idea of
there's not like I don't think there's feature gaps. I think there's integration, orchestration, and aggregation challenges to bring it all together.
Yeah, I guess once you have that platform in place, then implementing a new product or a new service on top of that, and as you say, this idea of kind of composable banking is really taking off, and I think becoming much more important here in Asia as well. I mean, technology is obviously a big part of this story, and you know we've gone through the hype cycle on so many technologies over the past few years. Just thinking, first of all, separate from Backbase, but just thinking for the industry in general, what kind of technologies excite you? You know, things around blockchain, AI. What are the things that you see banks really being able to leverage in the future to create a competitive differentiation?
Yeah, I think if you look at it, of course, there's different technologies, but like one part of the technology, I like a lot of the developments that you now see in security and how easy it gets, right? It's boring, but like all the face recognition, utilizing your smartphone to have ultra secure transactions. So everything in the realm of multi-factor authentication, out of bound transaction signing, super boring. I think it's also not breakthrough. The fact that these things now really work and they are super seamless. There was always this conflict between secure and usability or customer experience. And I think for the first time, we basically see these things come together very nicely. Another area is, of course, there's a lot of hype and talk about AI, but if you look at the chat GTP examples now, I think that kind of voice control or everything in the area of customer support, I think that technology is, well, we're all very excited about it, I think, globally now. But I'm very interested to see what type of true business value and customer support value we can generate in that area. But I think it's important to kind of connect these technologies to real world use cases, right? So I think that context of AI, natural language processing, and how we can help customers faster, and we can basically unburden the help desk. I think there's also great potential there.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you mentioned the Chat GPT. I think back to the first time I heard about blockchain, and it was a long time from the idea of blockchain and seeing any kind of credible implementations or even proof of concepts of it. But Chat GPT is almost the opposite. It's an incredible
right?
view on what you could be doing. Would you say those technologies that you mentioned, for Backbase, which ones are very important to the future of the products that you're bringing to market?
All of them, actually. The two examples I gave, they are of course super important. Although I think sometimes there's real technology acceleration, and other times it is all about taking the technology stack that is there, but kind of make a composition that is meaningful. I think the challenge right now is more in that second, in the latter. So we're already making massive progress. Of course, mobile is common. Leveraging cloud technology and utilizing these cloud platforms is basically the new operating system to kind of create customer value. We don't often talk about it, but they are mega accelerators if you compare that with 10 years ago. Or you had to kind of develop all those core technologies on your own, or you had to leverage some sort of open source libraries. So I think there's this massive innovation and there's this massive technology progress, but I think it's more in the utilization model and in the composition of how these things come together. I hope
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think the products of the future are going to be incredible in terms of being embedded, always on, all the time. I spent quite a bit of time in China, and your ability to use a platform like Alipay or WeChat Pay to pay friends, invest, chat with friends, all in the same place and seamlessly is really incredible. Mm-hmm. So when we start seeing that for the financial industry and in other places as well, it'll be pretty amazing. Reaching kind of the tail end of the discussion here, and I want to ask you a couple of kind of personal questions about what keeps you up at night. What when you think about Backbase and you think about the industry, what are the things that keep you awake at night?
For in the context of Backbase and as the CEO of Backbase, I really think it's important for a company. We grow the company, just to put it in context, from 50 people to 200 people, and today it's 2,000 people. My biggest priority is how do we keep that founder's mentality, not myself as founder, but like the original insurgent drive of the company. So avoiding red tape, avoiding political bullshit, but really kind of keep the company and the people in the company empowered, organize people in smaller teams with a very clear mission, so people can actually really execute against the vision and be truly architecting themselves around the customer. I think that frontline focus about like that made us successful in the first place. Partner, team up with customers, launching customers that had a big vision, rely on Backbase to partner and do it together. That original insurgent drive, I think it's super important to keep that going and empower people to be entrepreneurs in their own parts of the world. So also Backbase Asia is basically a very independent local franchise. So we have a global product, a global platform, a global brand, but we put a lot of effort in finding the local talent that really cares about our customers and basically with an entrepreneurial mindset can in a way kind of build their own local Backbase franchise.
Yeah, that's so important for the company. I mean, you guys have been entrepreneurial from the beginning and have been able to maintain kind of that independence by being completely private without external investment. So now I can see how that
really for customers.
Yeah.
There's a lot of IT projects that there's a lot of people and there's also a lot of delay, and apparently nobody really cares, or these programs are not run very efficient. I say it a little bit blunt, but I think it's also the human commit that you really work together with customers and you really care about the outcome, and you mobilize engineering teams committed to a positive outcome instead of just running a classic IT program, which is, you don't see that level of accountability always. So I think it's very important to do these type of partnerships together with customers, and they will greatly benefit from it.
Yeah, it's amazing. Thinking through to the end customer is really important in that as well, I'm sure. Just last question to kind of tie things off. When we have this discussion again in a couple of years, say 3 years from now, what do you think will have surprised people about the financial industry and the development of the financial industry? Kind of what should people be thinking about now that they aren't necessarily thinking about, that you think will kind of surprise us about the direction and the development in the next couple of years?
Yeah, I think if you take maybe 3 years is a little bit short, but if you take a 5-year view, I think you can already see a separation between the laggards and the digital progressive ones, and what it does for their NPS, and what it does for their cost-income ratio, and what does it do for their profitability ratio. I think there's some amazing research from McKinsey where they basically always kind of cluster the different players in the. So I think that the players that continue to stay complacent, or the players that are not taking the bull by the horns when it's about digital transformation. And what I'm basically trying to say, digital transformation is not per se about technology. It is also very much about change management. I really think culture eats strategy for breakfast all day long, right? So I think that leadership mentality, like the banks that have the leadership that not only have the vision or the McKinsey recommendation to do something, but also committed to culture change to drive it. I think that is the big game. So if you look 3 or 4 years further down the road, that gap only will widen. So I think it's the name of the game is mental commitment, culture change to make it happen.
That's a great note to end on. Jouk, thank you so much for this. This has been a great conversation. Really good to have you here today.
Thank you, Shannon.
And thank you, everyone, for joining us for another In Conversation With from Capron Asia, where we talk to some of the movers and shakers in fintech around Asia. Thank you again for this discussion with Jouk from Backbase, and look forward to seeing you on the next In Conversation With in the future. Thank you.